Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Burgernator and today it's going to be a short video. Today we're going to be addressing the 4 firearm safety rules and the 7 fundamentals of shooting. So if you're a new shooter, this video is for you. If you're an old experienced shooter, stick around and bless us with some knowledge. So first things first, the 4 firearm safety rules in order of importance. This is how South Africa sees it. It differs slightly from the American way, but what it says is pretty much the same thing. Now, in order of importance, it's always point your firearm in a safe direction. Always keep your finger off the trigger until ready to fire. Always handle as if loaded. Know your target and what is beyond or behind it. So if you stick to those 4 firearm safety rules, then generally you won't make any stuff ups. So before we go any further, we're first going to make the firearm safe, because safety is always our first priority when we deal with firearms. So first things first, we're going to take the firearm out. We identify a safe direction. In that safe direction, we're going to point the firearm with our finger off the trigger. We are going to remove the magazine. We are going to open the slide, inspect the chamber, inspect the magazine well. If it is safe, we're going to let the slide go forward. In the safe direction, we are pulling the trigger, and now the weapon is completely safe. I'm just going to put the magazine back on the firearm just so I have a better grip on the firearm. So on to the 7 fundamentals. First up, we have stance. Now stance, you can either use the Weaver stance or the isosceles stance. I generally prefer the isosceles stance, but the Weaver stance is more ideal from like shooting behind cover, etc. Now, generally, the isosceles stance is basically got its name from the 2 isosceles triangles you get by the triangles coming by your arms and by your legs. So allow me to show quickly. So the 2 isosceles triangles are formed by your arms and by your legs. That's how the isosceles stance get. So in this stance, you want to lean forward until you feel your toes just wants to go into the ground. Then you're stable. Your legs are spread shoulder width apart, and also you're leaning forward. The tip or the good thing about the isosceles stance is it works extremely well with I'm gonna say bulletproofs, but with vest and ballistic setups like this, since you have full ballistic protection. The other stance we have is the Weaver stance. The Weaver stance works perfectly for shooting around corners. You have your non-dominant leg forward and your dominant leg is back. You're going to draw the firearm and you are normally shooting like this. Your support hand generally isn't fully extended in this stance. Now, the problem I have with the isosceles stance in a normal setup, not shooting from behind cover, is as soon as you're in this stance, you're exposing the weakest part of your bulletproof vest, which is not ideal. Here I have full frontal protection, which is plate. Here I only have Kevlar or Dyneema protecting me, and it's a lot less being protected than the full frontal protection I have from the actual plate. So in the isosceles stance, I generally prefer this because you are generally more, I want to say, maneuverable, and you have better protection when it comes to vests. The isosceles or the Weaver stance is better from shooting behind cover because you can just weave in and out from cover. So these are the 2 generally accepted stances that we use: the isosceles stance and the Weaver stance. Next up, we have grip. 2 things important to take note of. This is the web of your hand. This is the tang of the firearm or pistol. So even revolvers have tangs, handgun. So basically you want the web of your hand as high as possible on the tang of the pistol. So you want this as high as possible, and you don't want any gaps on this side or underneath. Otherwise, you're gonna get stoppages like a failure to go into battery. So first things first, you have your firearm, you have your gun hand. Your gun hand is your dominant hand. Your gun hand will go place the web of your hand as high as possible on the tang of the firearm. Then from here, you lift your thumb. Then your support hand comes in. Your support hand goes on the bottom of the frame and you roll it up. All your fingers goes under the trigger guard and your thumbs ride each other. Just take note, your gun hand's thumb must try and go on top of your support hand thumb, otherwise you might keep the slide lock down. Then your firearm might not go into battery or lock into place when you fired your last round. Not the biggest deal, but it is something to take note of. So this is going to be the ideal grip you have with your firearm. So you have your gun hand, tang, web and tang. You make a secure weld here, no gaps, lift your thumb, support hand comes up, you roll it on, fingers goes underneath and thumbs ride each other. Then also, if you're shooting in the isosceles stance, both of your arms are going to be basically extended and both of them are going to be taking that recoil. Next up is sight alignment. Sight alignment is pretty simple. It just means the rear sights and the front sights need to be lined up. If they are lined up, then you're generally going to shoot at what you are aiming. Now at the back, you will quickly see there is dots on the actual rear sight. And there's also a dot on the front sight. Hopefully that goes into focus. Yes, there's also a dot on the front side. Now, those dots must just be aligned. I'll put a graph up on this video that illustrates my point. So if those dots are all aligned, then you have your sight alignment perfect. Now that we know what sight alignment is, now we can make it a little bit more complex. Now we bring in our eye and we bring in the actual target. Now, sight picture is just basically the path from your eye through the rear sight, onto the front sight, onto the target. So if everything there is aligned, then you have your sight picture. So just to illustrate, if the actual camera was my target, it's the path from my eye through the rear sight, to the front sight, to the target. And then you also start applying the other fundamentals. You have your stance, you have your grip, you have sight alignment, and now you have sight picture. You can close your eye if you're new to shooting, but you'll see later on, as soon as you start understanding how you're losing 50% of your peripheral vision, then you'll start shooting with both eyes open. Some people can, some people can't. It isn't really a right or wrong thing, but it's just a personal preference. So now we have, this is the path from my eye to the rear sight, to the front sight, to the target. My grip is right, and I'm in the isosceles stance. Next is, I don't want to say a difficult one, but this is the one people struggle to master the most, and that's trigger control. People tend, remember my firearm is still safe. Firearm is safe. People tend to want to do the sight alignment right, they have the stance right, they have their grip, they understand the sight picture, everything. But then they tend to just want to pull the trigger. And then they are surprised their shots or grouping are low or low left because they just pulled the trigger. It's a little bit more nuanced than that. So trigger is reset. So if you see and have a look at the trigger, you can see here I am pulling the trigger, but the shot isn't going off. You're not hearing that click. So this is what's referred to as the slack. You can also see the small little trigger safety on top of the trigger. Now this is the slack. So when taking a good shot, you're first going to take up that slack. Then as soon as you're here, then you're going through the other fundamentals. You make sure your stance is right, your grip is right, your sights are aligned, you have the right sight picture. As soon as those others are aligned and right, then you just squeeze the trigger. After squeezing the trigger, what's going to happen? The firearm is going to say bang. As soon as that happens, the slide will go back, it will eject an empty cartridge case, and then take a new one from the magazine, and it's chambered then. The trigger is still pulled in. I haven't let go of the trigger yet. After the shot's been fired, you let the trigger go slightly forward until you feel that reset. It says click. It's audible and you can feel it. As soon as you've done that, then you can squeeze again. And you don't have to take up all that slack again. So when shooting, your trigger is going to be there. You're going to pull the trigger and take up the slack until you reach that wall. As soon as you reach the wall, you will squeeze. The firearm will eject the case, take a new one from the magazine, and you can just let it go slightly forward until you hear that reset, and you can squeeze again. And all of this will happen whilst you are in the proper stance with the proper grip, leaning forward, sight alignment, sight picture. Then we introduce the trigger control. From here, we take up the slack, we squeeze. Firearm recoils and slightly forward, and we squeeze. That is proper trigger control. Easy to explain, a little bit more difficult to master, especially when the shot is going up. You start feeling adrenaline, you're excited. It's a lot to take note, because also as soon as you fire that shot, it is loud, you have recoil, and it's not always the first thing you think of. So when you're starting out, get a good instructor or someone that can shoot and explain things to you well. So that is trigger control. Next up is breath control. Now, breath control, if we were shooting rifles, I would have put this in front of trigger control. I personally feel breath control isn't that important when coming to handguns. You don't have to shoot halfway between a breath, taking it in or letting it go. It's not that important on handguns. However, just take note is if you are going to be running and you are out of breath and you are now standing there catching your breath, that obviously will affect how you're going to shoot. So if you are just relaxed, normal breathing, and you are shooting, applying the other fundamentals, that should be fine. If you're shooting longer range with rifles and you have scopes and it's 300-400 meters, then your breath control becomes a lot more important, because your breathing in and breathing out affects how your scope is going to be on target. So a lot of people only will take the shot halfway in a breath or halfway out a breath, also personal preference. So not that important on handguns. That comes more in the longer range shooting and rifle work, in my opinion. Last but not least, we have follow through. Now, what is follow through? Follow through's definition is maintaining all the other fundamentals until such time that the bullet has left the barrel. Now, what that means is until you have click banged, you are going to be in the right stance. You are going to have the right grip. You're going to have your sights aligned. You're going to have the right sight picture. You're going to have the right trigger control. And you're going to maintain all of this with the proper breathing until such time the round has left the barrel. That is proper follow through. It's basically making sure that all the other fundamentals are done right. That's a brief breakdown of the 7 fundamentals of shooting. Guys, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you popping in. Please like this video, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you don't miss future content. I will eventually start going to the shooting range as well. But if you guys feel like supporting me monetarily, I have a link on my profile with my banking details. Every little bit helps. Ammo is extremely expensive. And I am looking for sponsors for this channel, so feel free to hit me up there. Thank you so much for watching. Take care. Burgernator out.